Successful Minds with Patricia Barnowski-Schneider, the show that takes you around the world to share interviews with some of the most successful and relevant people on the planet. Hear their stories and get the most important business lessons they have learned on their road to success and get exclusive advice on how to implement their success into your life and business. Successful Minds with Patricia Barnowski-Schneider is brought to you by the Strategic Advisor Board and your host, Patricia Barnowski-Schneider.
Hello, and welcome back to Successful Minds. I'm your host, Patty Baranowski-Schneider. Today, I'm joined by Stephen Kopshaw, a seasoned entrepreneur with a passion for business growth. So welcome, Stephen. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thanks, Patricia. Excited to be here today. I am as you said, seasoned entrepreneur. I'll say maybe serial entrepreneur is potentially a good way to go. And I spend my days now really sharing my story, my experiences, and I hope to help other people avoid making the mistakes that I did. It's oftentimes in business, you go out and you're working on something, you're growing something, you have this big vision, and it takes time to get there. And if I can collapse time and condense down the amount of mistakes and maybe the cost of those mistakes for people, that's really the mission today, is just sharing that and helping people with that.
Right. Now, that's awesome because it's true. I had a conversation with somebody recently, and businesses don't have, unless you're hiring somebody, you really are just winging it. The internet is only, obviously it's changed now, but the internet gets you so far. So having somebody like a mentor, somebody like that, who's willing to share the story, because years ago, everything was so competitive. No one's going to tell you the easy way out or how to make it actually work because they don't want that competition. So helping other people to not get sucked into the pitfalls that you did is actually really nice.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a whole new world, and it's a different way to share these days, right?
Yeah.
Than even just 10 to 15 years ago. It's so different on how that this space really is.
Even just going back 2-3 years ago, now it's just getting even worse. I mean, I don't want to say worse, but growing even more. And it's kind of funny when you tell people nothing is secret. You can pretty much find out anything you want at any given moment. But
you can say it's getting even worse, because I will be the first to say that there's a lot of people who have made many thousands of dollars telling people how to go out and make 6 figures, 7 figures, and 8 figures, thinking that the skills and the mindset and the systems are translatable. And I'm going to challenge people that most of them are not. So vet whoever you're listening to and understand what they've done, because there's too many people who think they have value and they just put themselves out there and they've never actually walked the walk.
Yeah. But even nowadays, everybody's always, I get probably 10 of them a day, somebody pitching me something to make 6, 7 figures, blah, blah, blah. And all of these cases, they've all done it. And, but of course you had to take this course or join this thing and blah, blah, blah. And when you start calculating, it's like, well, how many millions of people have joined this course? That's how you became the millionaire you are. Because what you're saying, really, I'm like, I see some of it and I'm like, it's cool, but I don't see how I would become a millionaire by day. But yeah,
Yep.
I get it.
Yeah.
So tell us, your transition from a personal trainer to managing and owning multiple health and wellness businesses, it's inspiring. So can you share what motivated the significant shift in your career path?
Yeah, I'll say I don't know that there's a motivation behind it that happened, but more of a happy accident. I started out and owned a small personal training studio. It was literally 1,490 square feet. Loved it, but very small, and realized that at the end of the day, it wasn't going to unlock the freedom and the financial freedom that I truly wanted and what I was getting into business for. So I always knew I was going to go own multiple businesses. It was part of the game plan. Did I think 17 was the number? No, it kind of happened, but I unlocked this opportunity to grow businesses and grow my businesses really through taking over other people's liability or future liability. A lot of people get into business, they don't really realize the amount of work, the type of work, they think it might be easier or just generally isn't working. And a lot of times there's not only debt from historical decisions in business running, but there's still future. In my world, I've always been in service businesses, but services to be delivered and other things along those lines. So I found a little niche where I was able to acquire businesses and basically get it for free, but accept the future liability. And I'm really good at taking something and launching it, blowing it up, and then operationalizing it and just making sure it continues to do that. So I grew and it was a blast. I learned a lot throughout that journey. There was definitely some down points in there for sure and some big lessons learned. But moving from my 16th to what would have been what was my 17th location, I had made a bet with the CEO of a franchise system. And he basically said that if I could open this new business, it was a massage studio, and have more clients than him, then he would give me back every single dollar I spent while opening the business. And I'm like, okay. And in his mind, he's corporate, he's opening one, he's going to beat me no problem. They have a bigger budget, they know how to do it, better names, like people who have the certificates on the wall that say that they went to a 4-year college for marketing, all the things. So I shouldn't have won in his mind. But long story short, I ended up generating 185 paying clients on the first day we opened to their 63 on the 30th day that they opened.
That's pretty impressive.
It was amazing. I smashed them. Just shy of it. Like, I remember the most disappointing thing was I didn't have 189 because I didn't legitimately 3x them. And I was like, I almost 3x them, and I would have rather. So in that moment, the bet on the table was he was going to pay me that money. I was going to get a custom bottle of scotch from him. And then I was also going to stand in front of the national conference on stage in front of over 400 people, and he would have to tell the room that I beat him. So here I am, my ego, I keep getting all these pats on the back, and it's going to be amazing. Well, lo and behold, all those things happened, and it was nice. The money was nice, the scotch tasted good, the in front of the room, the ego thing, that was nice. But there was a very specific moment. This one franchise owner that had yet to open her business walked up to me and said, because of what you did, I'm not afraid to take my life savings and open one of these businesses now. And all of a sudden, the ego, the money, the everything that I thought I was getting didn't mean anything. And the fact that I changed somebody else's ability to open a business, be truly an entrepreneur, not risk their life savings as much, and have more confidence going into what they were doing, it unlocked this whole new level of, wow, I want to create that kind of impact. Not that I don't love being able to provide massages or personal training and fitness and health and nutrition to people, but if I could help 10 business owners that do that, I help way more people. Mm-hmm. So it just truly accidentally happened where, wow, I love that feeling and I wanted to chase that. So I started selling all of my businesses off within 30 days. Wow. Again, happy accident. That started in 2017 and I sold my last business off in the middle of 2019. And they were all service-based fitness and businesses, which didn't fare well in 2020. But ever since then, I've done and been in consulting and helping other entrepreneurs and business owners go really grow and accomplish what they want to grow and accomplish. And that just, it brings me a lot of joy. So it was a massive transition. It was kind of accidental. Like I didn't know I was chasing that, but when that feeling came along, like that was quite the rush and I wanted more of that.
That's awesome because, even anybody, whatever they get taught in school, whether you get your associate's, bachelor's, master's, they're teaching you textbook style stuff. And you can read everything, but it doesn't mean that that's what works for you. So having someone who's actually, like one video I always do is called Been There, Done That. You've been there, you've done that. You can tell them from experience exactly what works and doesn't work. And you seem to be pretty, involved with keeping up with the trends because, again, what worked 6 months ago might not work today. You have to keep evolving, everything's changing. And again, what you read in the textbook doesn't mean it's applicable today, so I think that's really huge. And I know what you mean. Like, I love helping people too. You just get so much, a joy from doing that, exactly. And unfortunately, the world we live in is everybody's keeping everything to themselves. So that's a good thing that you're doing. Now, you've achieved remarkable success across different states with 17 health and wellness business locations. So what do you say is the key to replicating business success in a diverse geographic and market conditions?
The two keys are leadership and communication. And what I mean by that is 14 years ago when I opened my first business, and I'll even say more like 18 years ago when I first got into management in a large box gym, I was a terrible leader and a terrible communicator. And the things that I remember myself saying, not nasty towards like the person, but just the way that I didn't respect somebody showing up and working and earning an honest living within my management. I'm like, I was such an idiot. Like it was just I was so bad. And I guess you have to be bad and you learn it and all the things, but my first 5 years in business, I only grew to 3 locations. My next 4 years in business, I grew from 3 to 17. So I added in 4 years 14 businesses, whereas before that I wasn't at that pace. And in order to do that, you need a team. You need people who are going to show up and work hard and execute at a high level and create the outcomes that the businesses need to thrive and grow and scale and all the things. And I couldn't have done that unless I learned to be a better leader and a better communicator. People weren't going to follow me if I wasn't a great leader. People weren't going to want to execute what needed to be executed if I was a bad leader. Uh, People didn't know what to do until I became a better communicator. You hire somebody and it's like, hey, you're a personal trainer. Go. And it's
Get
like,
it done. Yeah.
yeah, like what is the outcome to the business that they're supposed to create? And this is very logical, right? Emotionally great service, provide results, care for your clients. I'm not, those things are extremely important and the priority number one. But from a very pure business perspective, they're meant, personal trainers are there to create retention and keep people continuing to pay longer. Well,
Okay.
in order for that to happen, they need results. But before people knew that, it was the wild wild west. Things weren't getting done and the business wasn't able to grow and stay stable through that growth. We'd have those ebbs and flows. So it really took a lot of development on my end to be a better leader, to be a better communicator. Understanding leadership is about accountability and creating structure, as well as continuing to paint the vision and provide feedback, both positive and negative. And communication is just clearly articulating what it is you're trying to articulate and make sure everybody understands. And if they don't, say it a different way. So those are the two things, honestly.
I mean, that's good that you actually would say that, because so many people will never say they did anything wrong or that they didn't know. It's just, it was your fault that it didn't work out and that's it. And you're 100% right with the retention. And it gets a little tricky because, like, say what I do investor relations, public relations, marketing. So I offer 3 services under one roof. And for me, it's basically I give it all as one price as opposed to having to hire 1, 2, 3 different firms. But at the same time, I get other people who will say it's almost like buying a Walmart shirt and an Ann Taylor shirt. You expect the best quality from Ann Taylor because you paid for that, yet you wouldn't, so it's kind of a catch-22. So you have to find that happy medium and speaking to somebody who, who's been on the other side, because that's a big key is that when people are inside, they're too emotionally involved in things. So sometimes you need that person from the outside who could say, all right, I see what's going on here, but here's the best way to do it. And
Yeah.
that's where you come in, which I think is awesome.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, the freedom framework, it's a pivotal part of your success story. So can you delve into its principles and how it transformed health and wellness in business?
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me, the piece that really unlocked trying to create more structure and solve the problems in a systematic way that needed to be solved, it it was this process that I'll say it was developed in hindsight. It's things that I learned along the way that I never necessarily constructed in order in these 7 steps. But when I look back, I'm like, wow, when things really changed or things really went up in a good way, these are the things that I was doing. And I remember days where I had purchased my second business and things just weren't going well. And I was trying to figure out how to duplicate myself. And I didn't realize I was the system. And I'd sit in the back and I went to school for engineering. So computers and Microsoft Excel is like just easy to me. But I'd sit there and build a new pricing sheet in Excel for my business. And at the end of the day, it was comfort. It was, I could make this Excel sheet look really good, and I was pleasing myself, but I was avoiding the work that had to be done. And again, in hindsight, I see it so clearly. In the moment, well, I just wanted to hide from my problems and not face them. So, that really is the evolution, and very much step one. The F is filter. Figure out what it is you actually need to be working on. What is your focus? What is the thing that's going to move the needle most? And so that really was kind of thinking back in my career, just filtering out the noise and focusing on the thing that matters. So step one is filter. And it's just, that story remains vivid for me of I did a bad job of filtering back then. But again, my first 5 years, I only grew to 3 businesses. So I just wasn't great at the things that I am great at today. But as I continue on, I look through my career and I look through different things, and I'm like, oh, I used to do it poorly and then I got better at it. So the next thing is relate. That's the R. So step two. And once you know what you need to focus on and you've gone through your filtering process, who are you going to relate that to? Who's taking charge? What system is going to be creating the outcome for this? And maybe it is yourself, but maybe it's somebody on your team. But the worst thing is, yeah, here's what I need to do, but nobody's responsible for creating the outcome, because then it's never going to happen. The third step, the first E, is educate, and that's learning. You need to understand the problem. You need to understand the potential outcomes. You need to learn the potential ways that you can solve the problem. You can learn, if you do it poorly, what happens. So you need to educate yourself or provide education for whoever you've tasked with completing that task, or again, the thing you're working on. Mm-hmm. The fourth step, the second E, is empower. A lot of times we're, as business leaders, do a poor job at empowering our team to go win. We don't truly give up that control. Mm-hmm. But in the same token, if it is you, you don't empower yourself to go do it and potentially fail. You hold yourself to this really high standard of, I have to win. And then you also stop taking action. So you need to empower your team or empower yourself to actually go do what has to get done to win, and create the outcome that you've investigated, you learned, you educated yourself on. Step 5, the D, is define. So oftentimes we go at trying to solve a problem and we don't know what success really looks like. So define what the success criteria is. Should I accomplish this thing? What is the outcome I'm creating? And why does that matter to my business? Mainly, A, we need to have a target that we're aiming for, but also B, once we get to the end, if it comes, you want to be able to slow down and say, did I accomplish what I thought I would, or did I not? And why? Did I do a poor job of educating myself? Did I not understand what was going on? Did I way overperform? Did I way underperform? Did I do everything I can? So it's a way to really just set that line in the sand and make sure you ask those questions. The O and the M, so optimize. You ask yourself the question, with the resources that I currently have at my disposal, so existing payroll, existing systems, I'm not spending extra money, extra time. Mm-hmm. Can I somehow increase the outcome, increase the ROI, squeeze more juice from the orange, so to speak, on the thing that I'm doing? Yes, no. And then the M, maximize. If I can introduce a new resource, hire somebody, spend more money, a new system, whatever it is, can that increase ROI, squeeze more juice, et cetera, et cetera. So those 7 steps in order, going from figuring out what you have to do all the way, do I hire people to make sure that this thing can really operate, are the keys to what I believe is unlocking your freedom. Now, as business owners and people in general, we don't talk about unlocking our freedom enough, and most of us don't actually know what our freedom really is. Mm-hmm. So that's where freedom framework as a whole just kind of sticks, where all of us desire freedom to an extent. And I don't want to use the word retire, because in entrepreneurial world, I'm always going to work. I'm going to work until the day I die. So I'm not challenging that thought process. But what I am asking is, when you get to a point in time where you can do what you want to do, when you want to do it, and how you want to do it, what does life look like? And that's freedom to me. You might be working, maybe you're not working. I don't care about work. And you and your freedom will or won't be, and you'll paint that. Well, to figure it all out, it hinges on financial freedom. You need enough money and revenue and income to be able to do all of those things. It's the very, I'll say only quantifiable way to define freedom is to figure out how much money do I have to make every single year until freedom date.
Right.
And we just do some math. And if, very simply, you're like, oh, well, in 10 years, I need to get to $10 million. All right, cool. I love that. How much are you making right now? 100,000. Well, in 10 years, you're only going to make a million. And that's simple math, not compounding. And I'm assuming you have no bills to pay in that math.
Right.
So your formula isn't working to unlock your freedom. And all of a sudden, everybody goes, wow, I need to slow down and think about this. And it's like, yes, you do. Let's figure it out and go through the process and find how we're going to unlock your freedom. So that's kind of freedom framework in as short as I can make it.
That's awesome because so many people when they have a business, they're looking at more financials. So we started this, here's how much money I want to make. And maybe every quarter they'll come back and say, okay, did we make that quarter? What did we do? But no one's doing it the way you're doing it. You're saying, okay, you got to take a step back and see everything. Are you educated enough? Do you have enough team members? Everybody's just more, is the money coming in? Is the money coming in? Okay, then you need to go because it's not happening. That maybe that person's doing a better job than you are. That's not, there's more to it than that. So really breaking it down, that's a good analogy, how you broke it all down.
Thank you.
Yeah. Now tell us, receiving the 2 Comma Club Award, it's a significant achievement. So what strategies in digital marketing and customer engagement contributed to reaching that milestone?
Yeah, I remember getting to walk across stage at Funnel Hacking Live and get that picture with Russell Brunson and Todd Dickerson and just like how happy I was. And it was pretty cool. I think there's a lot of strategies out there and everybody has their different opinion. The thing that I'm going to lean into here that allows you to go and we'll call it launch or generate $1 million in sales from a funnel is having an audience. So there's upsells and there's downsells and cross sells and there's all these things that, yes, they matter. But if I'm going to give one piece of advice on one thing that matters most, it's figuring out the audience and making sure you have an audience. What I mean by that is a lot of people go out and they have an idea, a service, a product, a widget, or something, and they're going to sell it. And they create that thing and they go try to sell it. Now, granted, in a year or 2 or 5, you might get your 2 Comma Club award, 100%. But that year or 2 or 5 is going to be a lot of stress because you're going to be grinding and trying to get people to buy your thing and go through your funnel or just even if it's not a funnel and make that single purchase of your course, whatever it may be. If we flip it on its head and we know in the next 5 years, you're going to do $1 million. That's the outcome, no matter what. If you go in and you spend the next 4 years building an audience, teaching people and getting people to know who you are, like you, and trust you, and you make them an offer in 4 years on the exact same thing, you'll get that $1 million in like 90 days. And that 90 days is going to be a fun, crazy, generally stress-free comparatively to the grind for 5 years of a ride that I think you're going to enjoy the process way more. So I would honestly, the biggest thing really is that audience. Go out and make sure you just put yourself out there, whether it's social media free, whether it's at events and making connections, whether it's traditional networking, which people weirdly don't do as often these days, but you should do. Go find people who start to know who you are and they understand what value you can bring, and don't ask them to buy anything. Just give value. And then in 4 years, 2 years, whatever the right timeline for you is, then make that offer and you'll skyrocket to $1 million and you'll have your own 2 Comma Club award. Significantly less stressful than that grinding mentality.
That's actually good advice because it is true. Nobody networks anymore, and they can't keep blaming it on COVID anymore because you could still network online. And it is a little tricky where people, I know plenty of people, they say, okay, well, I read online and social media, I'm supposed to post like twice a day. Okay, so you posted twice a day. That's cool. Did you interact with anybody? Did anybody comment? Did you reply? Like, there's so much more that's involved. Like, even when people say they'll hire us for marketing, they just think it's a one and done thing. Like, okay, all of a sudden I don't have 1 billion followers. You have to build a relationship. You have to build the dialogue. It doesn't happen overnight. And again, you have to prove your work to people, like you said, but when they start loving what you're posting and your interaction and you seem just communicating with them and you seem to know what you're talking about, well, now you got their attention, but it's work, but okay, no one's getting paid millions of dollars to do nothing. So you have to put in the work, but you will reap the rewards for it.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's so many people are just on this more and now mentality, which listen, I love being able to order something from my phone from an app and it shows up in 2 days or less. I love that.
Yeah.
Trust me. But we still have to realize the world is the world. And I think today more than ever, and we'll in 10 years be able to say this again, but today more than ever, the buying cycle of people is becoming significantly slower because they're looking to understand who you are as a person. And again, just go out and create those relationships and let people know who you are, how you can help them without trying to sell them. And that just builds that know, like, and trust more than anything else these days.
Yeah, I mean, especially we live in a world where there's so many scammers, so they do have to learn you and trust you and all that. And now AI, everybody's using AI to create all the things that they're posting. So how do they know that you know what you're talking about? So show your face. Like one of the social media networking platforms, I like that it was live video like this because now I can talk to you. I can see, are you like reading a book as you're talking to me, getting the answers, or do you really know what you're talking about?
Yep.
So it is people, it's going to take a little longer for them to learn to trust you. But once they do, like you say, now you got them. And it's not that you got them because you're looking for them you want to have that relationship. Because I always tell people, whoever I work for, everybody always says, I have this company and everybody should just buy from me. It's not about you. It's about them. What are you doing that helps them? Well, why should they care what you have? So having that dialogue and having them like you, understand you, and want to connect with you, that should be more important because now you do have that relationship, which can go on for decades.
Yeah, exactly. 100%.
Now, you emphasize the importance of bridging the gap between fitness passion and business success. So what common pitfalls do entrepreneurs in the health and wellness industry face, and how does your approach help them overcome the challenges?
Yeah, I might span it to say a majority, if not all, entrepreneurs could fall into this a little bit, but coming from health and fitness in general, it's easy to truly forget about yourself when you're driving and building and doing this thing. It's easy to not make time to eat right, work out, go for walks, just have that time, yet you're still preaching to other people to go do that thing. So for me, health and fitness has really been, boy, since in high school when I was on the fire department. Health and fitness has always just been a part of my life since then. And then I got into health and fitness because of the firefighting. And as I went through it, it became a massive passion. Obviously, open businesses. And now a majority of my clients tend to be in health and wellness, 60% of them. But it's so often that they just don't even see it anymore. And as humans, we need to be reminded more often than we need to learn, right? And there's that saying, and I don't remember who taught me that, but I didn't coin it. It's not me being original, but when somebody comes out and they're just having a bad day or whatever the case may be, or they're really going hard at their business and they're in growth mode, they get distracted by the business and they don't take care of themselves. When you don't take care of yourself, you can't go and be 100%. And if you're not 100%, I can guarantee you start falling out of love with your business. Your passion starts to kind of get dwindled down a little bit, if you will. And it's hard. So it really comes down to having an understanding, again, what does freedom look like for you when you get true freedom? But also today, like, what's an ideal schedule? I was talking with somebody yesterday and I said, what's your schedule like next Tuesday? Randomly. And I go, don't look at your calendar. Just tell me. And her response was, well, I have a meeting at 11. I think it's this. And I have a meeting at 1. And then I'm usually have a meeting at 2:30. And then there's usually some other meetings that get scheduled on my calendar, but I don't really know. And that's my Tuesday. And I'm like, oh, well, my Tuesday is I wake up around 5:30. I go to the gym. I come home. I make my breakfast. I hang out with my daughter before she goes to school. I shower. I start work by 8:15. And by work, I usually learn something for the first 45 minutes of my day. And then I start getting my work done until around 11. And from 11 to 5, I'll take some calls with whoever can squeeze into that time. And at 5 o'clock, I usually try to shut it down so I can go for a quick walk, eat some dinner, and hang out for the rest of the day and get to bed. Usually find me putting my nose strip on by about 8:15, sleeping by 8:30, 8:45. And she's like, "Oh, your day sounds completely different than mine." I go, "Actually not. Both of us started with a meeting at 11 and both of us ended with meetings at 5. The difference was I told you about my day from a sense and point of control, where you told me about your day from a point of where you have to show up and where you're being commanded to go. And you didn't mention anything from a perspective." And she was like, "Wow, like I didn't even think of it that way." So yet again, just somebody who in the grind, not taking care of themselves, not in control of their day, and you lose the passion pretty quickly. So we have to design today to support what tomorrow's goal is and slow down and think about it. And it's a combination of maintaining your passion, being able to continue to learn, taking care of yourself, as well as executing whatever job it is that you're executing.
Yeah. You know, it is funny because I know so many people like they despise exercise and whatnot, and you know, like I always do mine in the morning, just like you, because I there's if I say I'll do it later, something always comes up. But it's like it's the first thing I do in the morning. I actually take my shows that I could watch them on the TV as I'm working out, but at least it's over and done. And you feel so much better after. Then now I can take on the day, you know, and you're fully charged and you're ready to go and you feel good.
Oh
You
yeah.
know, but so many people are just like, "Ah, it's just another job, go work out. I don't have time for it." It's like, yeah, but that could, you know, mentally be better for you, obviously physically be better for you, but people have to find what the priorities are. Obviously, we all, you know, need to work. We all want to make money and that's all great, but you have to take care of you know, like you said. So I guess, can you share a success story of a business or individual who's thrived under your guidance?
Yeah. It's funny. Obviously, you shared a little bit of how this was going to go, and I'm like, man, what story do I want to be able to share during this? Because it's not that there's a bajillion stories, because I tend to work with clients for 2 to 3 years at a time, and I've only been fully consulting for I'm going on my 8th year, and I can only handle so many, right? So it's certainly not the big bucket of success stories, but the thing that the story I want to share, there's one business owner in mind, and I won't share the specifics, but when him and I actually met, we were both at a mastermind about speaking, and it was not intentional. Like there was no goal of going there to network or find anybody. Well, I went up and I spoke, and I go to sit down, and he's like, "Hey, you're Steve, right?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm Steve. I just stood in front of the room and said I was Steve." Like he's like, "No, like you're Steve from that company that was like competing with us, Steve, right?" And I'm like, "Yeah, but I'm not with that company or doing anything with the company anymore." He's like, "No, I know, but can we have breakfast tomorrow?" And I'm like, "Sure, you buying?" He's like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "I love a free breakfast. I'm completely in." So I hop in an Uber in the morning. This guy that I've never met other than yesterday, just him knowing my name. And we go to breakfast, and he's got an iPad with like a 70-page deck ready to show me. And he just starts showing me his entire business and his vision and his dream and what he's wanting. And I'm like, it was really cool. I loved it, but it was like 8 businesses underneath an enterprise and just all of these different pieces. And his energy level is like up there. Like he's going, and I'm calm and steady and all the pieces, right? Like very rarely do I get really up or low in my energy, and he was up there, so I had trouble keeping up. Well, we talk, and he's like, "All right, let's uh let's see what we should work together." And I'm like, "I don't what do you don't even know what I do yet."
Yeah.
Well, fast forward, I end up flying to his house. We end up spending a day together, and I really learn, and I ask all the questions about the business now from my perspective, and it's like, what's going on? And we uncover at the end of the day that he has no real leadership structure in place. Very simply, and there's details to it, obviously, but this guy grew and started a business from literally nothing to $25 million a year and has zero structure in place. He's working 14 to 16 hour days, 6 days a week, completely goes like gone on that seventh day. No one can reach him. It's his recharge day.
Right.
And then he comes back and he's been grinding like this for 7 years. And I'm just like, I mean, really, really good. 25 million a year. Like, that's amazing. But like, how are you still alive? Like I just don't get it. So the journey started there really, and I'll never forget the day he called me. We're coming up on about 90 days, 3 months. And he reaches out and he's like, "Hey, Steve, I just wanted to say, like, this was the first time I ever took a 2-day weekend in as long as I can remember. And I'm actually thinking about planning a trip where I can go and just kind of sit and at a hotel on an island and look at the ocean for a few days." I'm like, "That's amazing. What changed?" And he goes, "I don't have to do everything anymore. I have a team that's being efficient, receiving feedback, communicating, and executing their job." He's like, "Sure, we still have a ways to go." He goes, "But in just 3 months, we've been able to make this massive change. And I had 3 people quit because of the changes you made. And then on top of it, we're actually able to do all of their work and nobody feels overburdened and we're not working massive, crazy long days. So you created more efficiencies and made all the team's life easier." Like, I just didn't think that was possible. And so we just laughed about it a little bit and I congratulated him on getting to go on a trip and everything. But I think that's probably the biggest success story where a business doing 25 million a year, which again, phenomenal position to be in just 90 days, we created more success for them in terms of profitability and efficiency than they'd been able to figure out in the 28 to 30 times the amount of time before that than I was there. And now all of a sudden they're primed and growing again because they can think about those things versus having to try to put out every fire every day and be reactive all day long. So
That's huge. And you notice so many companies, they don't want to either they don't know where they don't want to give up the control. And it is true, like you said, working that many days, that many hours is going to put himself in an early grave. So it's like, yeah, you're making all this money, but can't take with you. So, that's gold, but don't you want to enjoy, I think that's great. You did it so fast. And it is true. If you have a team that they were probably all stressed out with him. So now, even though it might seem like more work, but it's probably more organized where it's not as bad as it sounds on paper. I think that's
100%.
awesome. Wow, good job. Now, your journey is a testament to the power of self-education. So what resources or practices have benefited your continuous learning and growth as an entrepreneur?
My Audible membership and then the internet. Those
Yeah.
two things are by far the most beneficial things, the most beneficial resources that I've had access to. And when I say the internet, it's if you have the internet, you have the ability to make income. It's factually speaking, and if you don't believe it, then like we got to sit down and have a conversation about the mindset. But there's so much information out there that's free, let alone so much information that I would say is cheap. The most expensive thing I've ever paid for that I've been a part of was $35,000 a year. But that $35,000 a year helped me produce my $1 million a year plaque. So like 35, who wouldn't pay $35,000 to make $1 million?
Yeah.
Everybody should, but you have to pay the money first, right? But same token, Audible, if you want to go out and just learn inexpensively, get audiobooks and listen. And those like audiobooks are on my cardio days where I just have to go and just sit there in the doldrums of a repetitive motion. I'll audiobook, or every summer, my family and I, we always go on an RV trip. And while we're driving our 600 miles in a day, it's an audiobook. And like, I just want to learn, and understand what's going on. And then the internet is also just be inquisitive. Like, figure out the problem you're trying to solve and ask the question. Google it, use AI, and solve whatever it is you're trying to solve by trying to figure out that next step. So honestly, like those would be the two biggest things. Go out, pay the $100 a year for your Audible membership, whatever, download the books, listen to them, and I think you'll be in a good spot.
I think it's awesome because same with me. I don't always have time to physically read a book, but I have the Kindle and all the audiobooks. So whenever I have to do a long drive, I just have my headphones, and it's good because it keeps, It's funny when people say, "Oh, I have to turn down the radio so I can see where I'm going." But so yeah, if you have your audio and you just, you can learn so much and be inquisitive. Like people always tell me I should have been an owl because I'm like, who, what, when, hi. I always want to know. And it gets to the point where some people are like, you're not going to ever get the answer. But I'm like, but if you explain to me why, I won't. Because I just want to know, why do you do it that way? And maybe I'll disagree with you. Maybe I'll understand more, but just be inquisitive. I mean, that's how you learn. And but so many people are just complacent and they just go with the flow, and they wonder why they're not getting anywhere, because you have to think outside the box and do something, and branch
Yeah.
out.
Yeah,
Doesn't end after school.
no, it's interesting. And I'll give an example of maybe when being super inquisitive isn't necessarily a great trait. But I recently took a day trading course, and we start learning about reading charts and the candles and the trend lines. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, why is the trend line the trend line? And the guy's like, it just is. And I'm like, but why? I need to correlate the thing I'm seeing on the screen to something very logical so I know what's going on here, and then I can better decipher it. He goes, "Hey Steve, what time is it?" I'm like, "What do you mean?" He goes, "What time is it?" So I literally look down. I'm like, "Oh, it's this time." He goes, "Cool, thank you." I'm like, "I don't understand." His name is Steve too, actually. I'm like, "I don't understand, Steve. Like, what's the point of that?" He goes, "I didn't ask you where your watch was made from or how it's getting the time or what type of technology it's using. You told me the time, and that's the time, right?" And I'm like, "Yeah." He goes, "There are instances in life when you need to understand, you need to know what time it is, or you need to know how the watch was made. This is one of those things where you need to know what time it is." And I'm like, so it seriously took me a good month to 6 weeks longer to understand and catch on to the class than some of the other people that sat there and were like, "Okay, I understand." And I'm like, "But I don't understand it."
You have the engineer brain.
Correct. So but again, back to this point, entrepreneurship and problem solving, you have to be inquisitive and you have to figure out the answers. So it's
And
one of
not be
those things.
afraid to ask. No
Yeah,
one's
you
gonna.
can't be afraid to ask. I'm learning to turn it on and turn it off nowadays.
Yeah. I know so many people, they don't want to seem like they don't know. So like you could be in, I remember having office meetings and everybody would be there and it's like the whole board of directors and blah, blah, blah. And they'll say, any questions, anybody, and everybody, you could see in their face, they have no clue what you just said, but they just sit there. Be that person. Can you just explain it to me a little bit? And if you don't want to be stupid, explain it to me in layman's terms in case someone else doesn't understand. I mean, you
Yep.
can find loopholes, but yeah, good stuff though. So finally, for our listeners who are aspiring entrepreneurs in health and wellness, what advice would you give to them to start on the right foot and navigate the challenges that they might face?
I'm going to give you two pieces of advice. The first piece is whatever the business or idea is, the problem you're solving has to be worth people spending money on it. Just because you think it's cool doesn't mean it's something that's going to create a viable business. And I'm not saying it has to be electric cars and creating billions and trillions of dollars, but don't think you're going to go into a business because of you love the idea. So what is the problem that it's going to solve, and are people willing to spend money on that? And you need to truly understand that. The second side of this, though, is what I call just-in-time learning. And when I say what I call, I learned that from one of my early mentors. And he also didn't, he learned it from somebody else. So this is learned, passed down message. But just-in-time learning, a lot of people look at their business, their problem, their thing in front of them, and they look at step 1 through step 100, and they know they have to get all those things taken care of before they have their business. Well, oftentimes you may not know the answer to step 10 and step 37 and step 72 and step whatever. But not knowing that answer shouldn't be a reason not to take step 1. And if you don't know the answer to step 10, but you take step 1 through 9, I'm willing to bet you that you will be more equipped to solve step 10 when you get there than you were before you started step 1.
Mm-hmm.
On top of it, if you solve step 10 before you do 1 through 9, you might have wasted your time, because by the time you got through those steps, the thing you were thinking might not be there anymore.
Right.
So focus on what is right in front of you. Don't worry about the things in the future. you're equipped and you have access to information to help you solve the problem when it becomes the most important problem to solve. Don't try to solve everything from the get-go because you won't take action and you're going to probably end up wasting time.
Good stuff. So all you entrepreneurs, let it sink in. So anything else you want to talk about that we didn't cover or that you have going on?
I feel like this was a good, well-rounded, give some advice and share a little bit about my story. I think the thing I want to highlight is I've probably had more failures than I have successes in my career. And there's been a lot of times where you think to yourself, am I going to be able to pay payroll in 30 days? Things that are outside of my control, but things that were also very in my control. And one of the big ones is back in 2017, I believe it was, when the whole Cambridge Analytica scandal happened for marketing and Facebook and everything with the election. Overnight, marketing agencies weren't able to continue to market like they had been. And this thing that they had relied on for so long no longer existed. Well, my leads dried up literally overnight, and I wasn't great at managing my money yet. So it was one of those things where I have 2 months worth of expenses sitting in my bank account. What's going to happen? I need to find ways to do this. Well, that's how I got into marketing. And now I understand more than ever because it happened to me. Don't rely on a single source for my marketing because I need to diversify and make sure more people are seeing me in many different ways. And was it in my control? It 100% was, because I should have done it sooner. But everybody's going to sit there and go, it wasn't my fault. They did that. And you're right, but you should have seen it coming sooner. And in hindsight, now I will never mix that up again. And that's where having a mentor who's gone through some things to share their stories and experiences can pay dividends, because there's things that you just don't know until you know them. And I'd rather tell you that story versus you learn it and go through the stress. So, no journey is up. No journey is linear. No journey is perfect. Every journey is the journey you're going to take, and it'll get you to where you need to. And you need to go through the hard times so you can appreciate and understand the good times.
Good stuff. Now tell people how they can get a hold of you or learn more about you.
Yeah, I'm going to say the best two places to go. So social media side of the house is going to be either Instagram or Facebook, and just search my name, Stephen with a PH, Kopshaw with a K. And the other side is you can go over to the internet and just search Metric Mentor Labs and find me there. So that's where I hang out the most.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you again for being on the show. Again, that was Stephen Kopshaw. So thanks for listening to Successful Minds with Patty B. Never miss an episode by subscribing to the channel. So thank you again.
Thanks, Patty.
Thank you for listening to Successful Minds with your host, Patricia Barnowski-Schneider. Please leave your feedback and visit strategicadvisorboard.com to get the latest and greatest business advisement on the planet. Follow us on social media for updates, and we'll see you on the next episode.